Okay, we had an interruption there because I'm shooting this on my iPad and I just got an out of memory message. Now, checking the time, this video has been running for close to 49 minutes, which is a lot longer than my usual videos. So I'll probably have to divide this up into two parts. So I'll at least finish the combat turn here, and I'll probably end the video and we'll call this part 1. So when we left off, McIntosh was doing a die roll here against the Iron Brigade, rolling 3 dice, and he'll need a 1 or 2 to hit. And he gets 1 hit on the Iron Brigade. Now that's bombardment, so the Iron Brigade can't respond. So the Iron Brigade must roll for morale, which he will do so right now. Now, Iron Brigade's a good brigade. You can see the +3. He'll be able to add 3 to his roll. He rolls an 8, +3 is 11, so he easily passes his morale, and that 1 hit becomes 1 DM instead of a loss. Actually, artillery, firing long range, only does inflict demoralizations on enemy units. So that's the end of the combat turn. And I'll end part 1 of the video there, and I'll probably start reshooting part 2 right away, because I hate to leave things right in the middle of a turn. So we're in the middle of turn 5, which is the 12 noon turn, and we still have some chits to pull. So that'll be end of part 1, Battle Hymn. Okay, a short recap of Battle Hymn. We're doing a replay of the Battle of Gettysburg, and this is part 2 of the video. We're on the 12 noon turn, and we're in the middle of the chit picking, and that's the situation now. The Confederates are pushed on towards Seminary Ridge. You can see the Union cavalry up there guarding the road to the northeast. That's the 1st Corps here. That's the 11th Corps coming up. So let's pick a new movement chit and continue the video. Okay, I've just picked the 11th Corps chit, and so we'll be moving those counters. I should point out that I forgot to move Pogue's battalion of artillery when Pender moved up, so I've corrected that. So the 11th Corps will now take position, and we've got a lot of Union troops there in the field. Let's see how this goes. Okay, the 11th Corps has come up through the town. We've got the brigades of Schimmelpfennig, Krzyzanowski, and Osborne's artillery. Schimmelpfennig, by the way, is German for shining penny. Okay, and the rear of the 11th Corps, von Gilsa and Ames, have come up the Emmitsburg Road, and they're currently caught in a traffic jam behind Stone and Biddle. So, we'll draw another chit, see what happens. We've drawn Reynolds' 1st Corps. So the 1st Corps might be able to do something here. I think the Iron Brigade's going to get bold and counterattack here McIntosh, because the Confederates stuck it out all by itself, and I think he's going to counterattack. So Iron Brigade will go in. We know the rules by now. You have to mark this with a move fire marker. Cutler. Well, I think the 1st Corps will just prolong their line along Seminary Ridge here, like so. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They've got a nice tight line there. Wainwright's artillery will come up, maybe to be able to take a shot at Breckinridge later if he's lucky. And Stone and Biddle, let's go across the woods here, across the Seminary Ridge. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And Stone will just go up here, 2, 4, 6, 8. Now, the 1st Corps is well in hand now. So we've got our first counterattack by the Union 1st Corps. Of course, we have to wait for the combat chit. So, let's pick the next chit, see what happens. We draw, well, the Union locked in. It's going to be a combat turn. So, we should know the ropes by now. McIntosh will have a nice shot at the Iron Brigade because it's point blank range, and Iron Brigade will not be able to fire back because this is approach fire. Now at range 1, artillery is enhanced. They actually get +1 to the hit modifier. Iron Brigade is in clear terrain. So all the McIntosh will need is 6 or less and he's rolling 3 dice. So this should do something. And he gets 2 hits on the Iron Brigade. Okay, we know the ropes by now. The Iron Brigade will have to check morale. He does. He'll be adding 3 because it is the Iron Brigade. He rolls a 3. 3 plus 3 is 6, which means he passes. And since this is adjacent artillery, he will take hits. So he'll take 1 hit, or 1 permanent loss, and 1 demoralization. So we'll need a 5 counter for the Iron Brigade. He's taken some casualties. And 1 demoralization. And there are no retreats when you do a approach fire. So now we're going to do regular combat. The Iron Brigade will be rolling effectively 4 dice, because I've got 5 strength points and 1 demoralized. So 4 dice against Macintosh. Macintosh will be rolling 3 against the Iron Brigade. I'll roll those and we'll see what happens. Well, the Iron Brigade paid for that attack. Macintosh inflicted 3 hits on the Iron Brigade, and the Iron Brigade only inflicted 1 on Macintosh. So we'll roll morale now and see how the troops stood the combat. We'll roll Macintosh first. It doesn't matter, by the way, which you do first, but I'll roll Macintosh first. He rolls a 4, which means he fails, and I'll check that up, but I think that means he's going to have to retreat. Let me just check the rule on that. Yes, Macintosh does take a hit, and he will have to retreat 2 squares. 1, 2. Iron Brigade will now roll for morale, although he's adding 3 to the dice. He gets a 6, which becomes a 9, so he passes his morale. And when you pass your morale in the combat phase here, the first hit becomes an actual loss, the other 2 become demoralization. So I'll mark those. Okay, the Iron Brigade, the net effect was to really mangle the Iron Brigade. It's down to 4 strength points, but 3 of those are demoralized, so he's just barely hanging on. That was a very costly attack to push Macintosh back. Of course, Macintosh is banged up a bit too. But anyway, it shows you how combat worked. I'll have to draw another chit now and see what happens. Oh, I should mention that the Iron Brigade could advance, because they did win the battle, but I don't feel like having the Iron Brigade stick its neck out there, so we'll draw another chit, the last one actually, and it's Heath's division. So we'll look at Heath's options and then pick up the video after Heath has moved. Okay, Heath's division closed in on the Union First Corps. Pettigrew went in, Brockenbrough, Davis, all of them went in. Now, this could be a complicated attack, but since the combat chit is done, this may not be an attack at all. There may be retreat before combat when the combat chit comes up. But potentially we have fighting all the way down the line now, and the turn is over. There's no more chits left in. So we'll have to see what happens for turn 5. Oh, which reminds me, right, I didn't move the 11th Corps on here. That's another thing to watch. When your men come on the board, make sure they move. So I'll just move the 11th Corps on. No harm done. They just arrived at 5H. And when Heath moved, Garnett would move because he's part of Heath's division. There we go. Okay, we're all legal again. So that's the position at the end of 12 noon. Now turn 6 is a big turn. Lots happens on this turn because Rhodes' division comes in, and I'll mention this Jenkins cavalry unit now. Might as well mention it when he comes in. Well, I'll mention that when Jenkins actually comes in. But we take Rhodes' chit and throw it into the bucket here with all the other chits, and we're now doing turn 6. Okay, the beauty of this system again is that we're beginning a new turn. We've got a whole mess of new chits in the bucket there. We've got potentially a new division coming in from the north, and we don't know what's going to happen for the first chit. What chit will be pulled and what will happen? Let's pull it and see. Okay, we're just pulling the chits here. And what is the chit? Uh-oh, Union combat turn. Well, let me examine this situation, because this could be pretty interesting. When your chit is pulled, Union, of course, the Union will have the option of fighting. Let's go through the process and see what they can do. Okay, following the combat procedure in order, step 1 is defending cavalry would retreat. In this case, we have no cavalry there. Step number 2 is attacker bombards, and we do have a bombardment here. Wainwright is in range of Brockenborough, and Wainwright will be rolling 5 dice against Brockenborough. He's in a clear field, and at range 2, it's -3. So he's going to roll 5 dice, and he's got to get more or less 2 or less. We'll see what Wainwright's bombardment does. 2 or less, he gets 2 hits marked on Brockenborough. And that's the only bombardment we have. So Brockenborough will check his morale. Does he get to add anything? Ooh, -1. Brockenborough is not very good. Well, he rolls a 2. He fails his morale. Now, since that's long-range artillery always translates to demoralization, not hits. So we'll mark that. Okay, well, that result is not good for Brockenborough because he's got 3 demoralization and his strength is only 3. So he shatters. He actually comes off the board and he's put in the Confederate shattered units box over here, which means he has a chance of coming back in the night. So another beautiful aspect of this game is the shatter and strength point loss system. It's really elegant. So that's it for bombardments. Now, the next step would be the attacker could retreat. Now, why would the attacker retreat? Well, in this case, I don't know. The First Corps is adjacent to a lot of big units here, especially the Iron Brigade is against Pettigrew. And the Union doesn't really have to engage in the Confederate combat right now. I think they can fall back. The trouble is with falling back, though, the retreats are specific. It says they must retreat 2 hexes. It doesn't say 1 or 2, it says 2, which is pretty far back. But I'm going to have the Union retreat because they don't want to engage with the Confederate line here. Let's catch the action after the Union have retreated. Okay, that's the Union First Corps after they've retreated. Now, I'm not going to get into all the nuances of the retreat rules. The Union are in a bit of a funny position because there's specific rules for retreats. You have to retreat opposite the enemy and go to side 1. Anyway, they're still in a good line and in a good position. Go to the next chit pulling and see what we get. And we pull Pender's division. So we'll move Pender's division, see what happens. Okay, Pender's division moved up. Thomas and Scales went over to the left, and these 2 brigades of Lane and Perrin decided to close in on Paul's brigade, again marking them with a movement fire marker. We pull another chit, and the next chit is artillery reserve. That means the artillery reserve of the Confederate Army can move, which I think is Pegram and McIntosh. Let's move them up, see what they can do. Okay, I moved Pegram, or rather McIntosh, out to the left there. He learned his lessons from the Iron Brigade. He's out there kind of alone, but he did chew up the Iron Brigade, so he feels confident he can go there. He knows that Rhodes is coming in eventually. And Pegram moved over to this ridge to take some long-range artillery shots at Biddle, if he gets it. Let's draw the next chit, see what happens. Next chit is Confederate combat turn. Well, that means the Confederates are engaging Paul. We've been through this before, so to shorten the video, I'll do all the approach fire, all the regular combat fire, and then show you the result after these 2 brigades have engaged Paul. Okay, the Rebs got some pretty good hits on Paul. They hit him 6 times, and Paul hit Perrin 4 times. These will translate into other markers, so I'll roll the morale for those, and we'll see what the actual markers will be. Okay, there was some ferocious fighting there. Perrin took a lot of damage. He's down 1 strength point. He's got 3 demoralization. So he's shot up pretty bad. And Paul is shot up so bad he actually disintegrates. Because he's reduced to a 4. And 4 of those are DM'd. So Paul shatters. Keep his strength point intact. And he goes over to the shattered Union units. So he's knocked out of the game. Now, Perrin failed his morale. So he must retreat 2 hexes. And since that was a Union combat turn, the Confederates can't advance there. But that battle left a big hole here. Pretty ugly fight. Let's get the next chit and see what happens. The next chit is Heath's division. Let's see what happens after Heath. Okay, I'm taking a chance here with Heath's division. 3 of his brigades closed in on the Union line here, and Garnett moved up there for maybe some further pot shots. Could be interesting if the Confederates get their combat chit. I mentioned that the Confederates could get their combat chit. Well, yes, they could, but that would have to be next turn because they've already pulled their combat chit. So all that we're pulling for now is movement chits. And what do we pull? We've got the 11th Corps. So the 11th Corps is going to be able to maybe counterattack or pull out here because they're adjacent to a bunch of Confederates there. Let me examine the situation and see what they'll do. Well, the 11th Corps played conservatively. They decided to bring their forces up. They did fall back to the town. Osborne's a little exposed there, but that's what they did. Pull the next chit. And what do we get? We get Rhodes division. Okay, well now the game is going to get interesting as Rhodes floods onto the map from the north. And it's at this point I guess I can explain something about Jenkins' brigade and the cavalry in general in this game. Okay, Battle Hymn is one of the very few games on the Battle of Gettysburg that does not include the Confederate cavalry. And Eric made that decision for very good reasons. Now there is one single cavalry unit, and it's an optional unit at that, although I would recommend putting him in. That's Jenkins' Cavalry Brigade. The reasons why Jeb Stuart is not here on July 1st are rather complex, and they have more to do with the campaign. Now, the Confederate cavalry did arrive on the battlefield very late on July 2nd, and if you're interested in the cavalry in the Gettysburg campaign, I recommend this book here. Plenty of blame to go around. Jeb Stuart's controversial ride to Gettysburg. It's quite good. Anyway, the long and the short of it, as far as we're concerned, in the game is there is no Confederate cavalry in the game, just Jenkins' Cavalry Brigade, and it arrives on the first day from the north with Rhodes' division. So we've picked Rhodes' movement chit, and let's move Rhodes. Okay, this is the situation after Rhodes has just flooded onto the battlefield. They're threatening the Union Army north of town now. More infantry coming up this road here, the Mumsburg Road. And we've got our Jenkins cavalry way off to the west there, or east rather, scouting. So that's after Rhodes has moved. Let's pull the next chit, see what happens. And the chit pulled is the Union 1st Corps. Let's move the Union 1st Corps. Okay, taking a page from the 11th's retreat, the Union fell back to southeast of the town, southwest, and these markers would come off because they're no longer relevant. There's no Union units adjacent to them. So they're playing a cautious game, the Union, and they're falling back in order and in strength. So only a couple of chits left. Let's pick the next one. And that happens to be Heath's division. Well, he's got some decisions to do. Okay, Heath's division closed again, trying to nudge the Union out of the town. Garnett has moved up to the heights here, so we can get a nice pot shot when the time comes. Picking the last chit, which is the Cavalry Corps. That's the Union. And, well, they're not going to do much, but just keep Jenkins at bay. We'll move them. Okay, Gamble and Califf moved over to the east of Gettysburg, guarding the Union rear and right. So they're doing their job. That's the last of the chits. So we're doing the turn 7 turn, 230. We'll put the new man on there and see who moves. Okay, on turn 7, a new division is introduced to the game, Ewell's division. So we throw the movement markers in there, do some shuffling, and let's see who moves first for turn 7. Again, it's getting very interesting. Now, I'll have the video go to at least turn 8, because on turn 8 something special happens, and we'll want to show that. Let's pull the chits here, see who moves first. And the winner is, Confederate combat turn. Well, there we go. So the Union will have decisions again. Will they want to fight or retreat? I think this time the Union is going to take the chance and fight. So I'll do the first round of approach combat and see how the Confederates fare out. And before I roll the die, I'll point out that when you're in the town, you're very hard to hit. You know, you're practically talking street fighting here, and that's brigade level. So that brigade's going to be very hard to hit. And as I mentioned, you have to split your fire. You have to fire at everybody. So Osborne here is not going to be able to throw all 5 at this guy. He'll have to allocate at least 2 factors to this brigade under Pettigrew. So I'll pick up the action after the Union have done their defensive fire. Checking the chart there, it's actually easier to hit in a town, not less so. Anyway, although when you fire from a town, you're -1. So the Union did pretty good on their defensive fire. They caused Davis to retreat and hit him for more demoralization. They hit Pettigrew, but Pettigrew survived his morale roll and stays there. So now we have to go to regular combat. So Osborne's going to have to split his fire between Pettigrew and Archer, and the Iron Brigade is going to be able to throw everything it's got at Archer. And Archer's pretty shot up. So I'll do all the die rolls for the combat there, and we'll see what the result is. Okay, there were some rough combats there. Osborne failed his morale check, got a bit demoralized, and had to fall back, which means Pettigrew could advance. But Pettigrew won't. Archer did drove and shattered the Iron Brigade, which is just disastrous. But Archer is really shot up, so he won't advance either. So that's the end of the combat turn for the Confederates, but they did pretty well. Let's pick another chit and see what happens. Okay, we pick Union First Corps. Let's see what happens after Reynolds moves. Okay, I think the First Corps has had enough of this Confederate nonsense, so they've decided to counterattack with Biddle and Cutler, and Baxter's got in position, Stone covering the Union right. So we've got a potential counterattack. Let's see what the next chit is. Next chit pull is, well, as luck would have it, Union combat turn. So now the shoe's on the other foot. The Confederates will have to decide whether they're going to retreat or not. That's Garnett being hit by 2 brigades. Now I'll just have to check the retreat rules for, that's artillery. I'm not sure if they qualify or not. Note this situation isn't applicable for retreats because it is artillery and it's the Union combat turn. So Garnett cannot retreat. So he's going to be able to fire on Biddle and Cutler. I'll remove the markers there. And he'll have to allocate 2 factors to Biddle, 2 factors to Cutler. Cutler's got some nice woods defense there. Biddle's out in the open. I'll roll the die for the approach fires and see what Garnett's guns did. Okay, Garnett's defensive fire only got 1 demoralization point on Biddle. So Cutler and Biddle are going to be able to throw a lot of dice against Garnett. I suspect Garnett's going to pay for defending there alone. I'll roll the dice, do the combat, and we'll see what the result is. As I suspected, Garnett didn't fare too well. He didn't do a darn thing against Biddle and Cutler, and he took a strength point loss and 3 DM, which means he's shattered. So he carries his 3 SP over to the shattered box there, and since that was the Union combat turn, they could advance. I don't think they will. I think they're content with that position. Okay, we drew Pender's division. So let's move Pender, see what he can do. Okay, Pender's division wasn't too anxious to close with Cutler. He'll be rolling a lot of dice, and he's in nice terrain there. So they just moved up to him, and they moved Pogue in closer to maybe get a pot shot later. We'll pick another chit, and see who moves next. The next chit is Early's division. Okay, so we've got some action now happening to the northeast of Gettysburg. Okay, Early's division comes crashing in down the Harrisburg Road and the Hunterstown Road. So we've got a new division now to the northeast. The Union may be a little hard-pressed now as their line will get stretched and more Confederates appear on the field. So, we'll draw a chit. What's the next one? The next chit is the 11th Corps, Howard. Let's see what he can do. Okay, the 11th Corps didn't do too much. They just extended their line out to the east because they have to reckon for Early now. And they've got a couple of brigades, Smith and Coster. That's Steinmer's division. So they're just trying to stabilize their line. We'll pick the next chit. And the next chit is the Rhodes division. Okay, Rhodes. Let's see what Rhodes can do. Okay, Rhodes division, which has some big brigades in it, had no fear in just closing here on Gamble. So when the time comes, I don't think Gamble's going to stick around. So the take a bit of an aerial view here. You can see the Confederates are well handled north of the town there. They're really stretching the Union line. And we've still got a few more chits to pull. Let's see what happens. Okay, we picked Pleasanton's Cavalry Corps. So their move is rather simple. They've got to get the hell out of Dodge here, get away from Rhodes. We'll take these markers off as soon as you, when they're irrelevant, you take them off. Gamble will just extend the Union right over here. And, no, maybe do it this way. Yeah. Just extend the Union right. Only one chit left. That chit is the Artillery Reserve Confederate. That will mean Pegram and McIntosh. We'll move them. Okay, that's the situation at the end of turn 7. So we're going to begin turn 8, and I'll end the video after that. Now, you can see the Confederates are closing fast. The Union is falling back. They have 3 shattered units. The Confederates have 1 shattered unit. Now, on turn 8, something different happens, and those are exclusive rules to Gettysburg. Okay, what's so special about turn 8? Well, turn 8, the rules say that the Confederates have the initiative. So you put this little initiative marker on turn 8 to remind you that they have the initiative. And I believe they have the initiative right till turn 11. Now when you have the initiative, it means that you take your combat chit out and set it aside, and the rest go in the bucket. And what that means is, instead of drawing a chit, you can voluntarily choose combat. That's what initiative means. And as we've seen, that can really make a difference. When you've moved everybody in and you can dictate when the combat is, that's an advantage, certainly. So we'll do one more turn on turn 8, and we'll do some concluding remarks on the game. Okay, we're going to pull a chit for turn 8. And remember, the Confederates do have their combat chit, which they can use at any time. Now, they wouldn't want to use it now because there's not enough units adjacent to make it worthwhile. So you'll want to keep that combat chit for when you really need it. So, who's moving for turn 8, the 3:45 p.m. turn? First chit pull is Ewell's division. Okay, could be interesting. That's the pink units way off to the west there. Let's move them. Okay, well, Early moved off to the east. 2 brigades closed in on Coster and von Gilza. Now, because they pulled a chit, they can't use their combat chit now. You have to use the combat chit in lieu of drawing a chit. So, we'll go to the next chit pull and see who's moving. The 11th Corps may want to get out of there before Early attacks. And they pull. That's the CSA Artillery Reserve, which is good old McIntosh and Pegram again. Okay, Pegram got very bold and established himself over here on Seminary Ridge. Now the Union line is slowly beginning to be overlapped. That move could either be brilliant or pretty stupid. Don't know. I mean, the First Corps, if they moved first, they could maybe hit Pegram as they fall back. Don't know. So we'll draw another chit and see who moves. And the winner is Rhodes Division. So we'll now move a Rhodes. We're a little shy to move Rhodes Division in. You've got the town of Gettysburg there. I think I'd be just as content to let the Union withdraw if they want to. So Rhodes really won't move any men. We'll draw a chit. And the chit is a Union combat turn. Well, that is really up to Coster and von Gilza. But they certainly don't want to hang around. The Union artillery is not in any position to do any firing. So we'll watch the phasing and make sure we get this right. But I think von Gilza and Coster will be able to just move out. Yes, von Gilza and Coster can move out. But if they do so, of course, they won't get the approach fire. But that's the least of their worries right now. They will retreat before combat. And that's what they're going to do. Okay, von Gilza and Coster retreated there. The Union or the Confederate are not allowed to advance. We'll draw another chit, see what we get. It's the Cavalry Corps. Well, Pleasanton, I'm pretty happy with where he is located. Maybe Caliph will go out here. It's expensive to cross these creeks. 3, so in the woods is 3. 3, 6, 7, 8, 12. That's Caliph's battery. Gamble, he'll drift off into the woods here and guard the flank like that. Say we're pulling another chit. This time we pull the 12th Corps under Slocum. Now that's a new unit coming on the board. That's McDougall over on the Union right there. I'm suspicious of that. I'm wondering if there isn't any other units. I'm just going to check. Okay, so McDougall comes on the board. Now time-wise it's 3:45 in the afternoon, and you can see that the Union again is beginning to concentrate fairly well, even though Rhodes and Early came on for the Confederates. McDougall will march up the road, up the Baltimore Pike. And that's McDougall's move. Draw another chit. And it's the Heath's division. He's been fighting all day. Not sure what he can do. We'll take a look. Heath couldn't do a lot, but he moved Pettigrew in to take on Krzyzanowski here. Krzyzanowski, well, we know they've moved the 11th Corps, right? Thought they had. No, maybe not. So, well, anyway, he's moved in. Let's pull a chit here and see who moves next. Next is the 1st Corps, Reynolds. Let's take a look. Okay, the 1st Corps has moved to try to contain Pegram here. Although I really would like to ding him. Baxter and Cutler are about the only brigades that could really... Stone could get in, but I don't think the Union will counterattack this time. Stannard's coming up the road here. Another new brigade up the Gettysburg Road. A few chits left in the pot. Pull a chit. And the chit is the 11th Corps. Well, what that means Krzyzanowski can move out again. And he will. He's got to go 2 squares according to the rules, so 1, 2. And Schimmelpfennig will move 2, 1, and that's it. I'm happy with that move. Maybe we'll move on Gilsa here too. So Union line is looking good and pretty formidable. Let's draw another chit. See what it is. It's Pender's division. Well, that's the white division here. Let's take a look at the options. Okay, Pender moved 2 brigades in to attack Baxter. At least move next to him anyway. We'll take that marker off. Okay, pulling chits again. I think there's only one chit left. Yeah, it is. And that's Heath's division. And, well, don't think Heath needs to move. Well, that's the end of the day. So that ends the 8 o'clock turn. Now, of course, the Confederates still have their combat chit, so that's what they'll do. They'll do this last attack of the day. I'll do all the die rolls here, the approach die rolls, and see what the net effect is of these two brigades attacking Baxter. Okay, that battle was rough on Perrin, who shattered, and Baxter, who shattered. So that's the end of the 3:45 p.m. turn. Okay, I'll wrap the video there as far as the playthrough is concerned. I think you get a pretty good idea of what the game is all about. I certainly like it. I think it's become one of my favorite brigade level games on the Civil War. Now there's many things in the rules I didn't get into. There are some great optional rules, which I'll just mention briefly. Okay, the designer has some great rules for randomness when playing solitaire. And by the way, I can say that this game is very, very good as a solitaire game. It's just great because of the chit pulling system. You don't know who's going to move, when the combat is going to have. It plays very well solitaire. There's other more advanced rules too for those who really want to get into it. There's a lot here. Now when it first was announced over a year ago, I thought it would be just like a quad game with some, a little bit of chrome on it. But what I got was a good comprehensive brigade level Civil War system. And I understand that Eric is working on a Battle of Shiloh and a Battle of Bentonville game. So all I can say is Compass Games and Eric, very well done. I think this is going to be my favorite brigade level Civil War game on the Battle of Gettysburg. So that's it for now, and thank you for watching.